The street is where we create. We call it suburbanpreneurship.
Mixing big company resources with an entrepreneurial spirit.
This is Electric People. Anthony Monaco, fresh from the East Coast, just flew in today. Found us in our little studio. What's up, man?
What's going on?
And Adam, you haven't sat with me on a hot mic for a very long time.
I know, it's been a year.
Do you wonder if the magic is still there?
It's like riding a bike, man.
Yeah,
You just
right back in.
it's shake and bake.
Shake and bake.
Shake and bake.
Yeah.
So, dude, I love flying from the East Coast to the West Coast because you leave and you have like a day this morning and
Yeah,
then
you
you
got
have
the full
like a
day
whole
still.
extra day.
Yeah.
Bit of a different story going the other direction.
Little time travel.
Yeah, man. Cool. So excited to have you on the podcast, man. I'm surprised we haven't yet, but we're just getting back into producing kind of consistent content again. So we're like, we got to bring it back hard with Anthony. So I want to jump straight to my first impression of you.
Okay.
Can we go straight there?
First impression. Oh my gosh. I think I know.
No, it's positive. Did you think it was negative? Did you have a negative first impression?
The first impression that I had was at Dallas when I had lost my voice when we were trying to talk.
Oh, no, dude, that was even... I'm talking way before
Oh,
that.
okay. All right.
I'm talking way before, but I do remember that. We're in this like massive stadium trying to talk, and he's like, yeah, dude, it's like not
I had
there.
like completely lost my voice. There was like not a single...
Just randomly. Like it's I know sometimes when I travel, the pollen or like something happens in the air and I will literally lose my voice within like a half a day.
Yeah, I don't know what it was that time. Maybe it was cigars or something, but I couldn't get anything out. Like Cam and Zach were translating for me pretty much the entire conference.
Dude,
and it was
like,
my first time really
that's like
being
part
talked.
of my sickness. Like for some reason, I'll get sick like once a year and completely lose my voice. It's almost like the universe pushing like the factory reset, and they're like, dial it down for a couple of weeks. But it's terrible when you're in a social setting because it's awkward. You're like,
Could you push your throat and like make it come out?
No,
like a vocoder.
it was nothing.
You just decide
It was
that, hey,
nothing.
I'm just going to go this way. You just go that way, and we'll circle back up in a week.
I
when
tried
this
to
is
like
fixed.
catch up with Ty, and he saw I was struggling. I just put my head down in defeat. I was like, I'm done.
So this is a quick story, but when Chance was recruiting me to come do solar from Alarms back in 2012, I flew out to Boston in April of 2012, and I went knocking and going from Utah, like such a dry climate out there, and then it was like right during like pollen season, and within 24 hours I lost my voice. That's why I said that. And so,
man.
and I was trying to knock to like see if I was going to switch to solar. And so I just kept going out, and I couldn't even like speak. And that's why I said I would like push my throat, and it was like a thing. So I would knock a door, and I'd be like just like
lodge it loose a little bit.
like actually. And I ended up making a sale doing it, and I couldn't complete like the welcome call or anything, and it was just the craziest thing.
That's funny.
But yeah, it was really funny. So anyway,
I remember getting that
Sorry
when I
to
first
digress.
started selling in California. My first year selling in California, selling alarms. I was up in NorCal, and you get allergies really bad. And I remember being like, I couldn't stop sneezing. Just one of those
Oh,
things.
it's the worst.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
On the doors.
But first impression was when I wanted to be a Goonie, dude. I still haven't been
Ooh.
inducted into the Goonies. So do you remember the Goonies?
The Goonies are legendary.
The Goonies are legendary.
I
So-
remember. Well, the thing with the Goonies is every team was naming themselves like cool, like just like
Yeah, like
the
honor
whatever
and like adversity and
just like your
resilience and
standard
stuff.
typical like sales guy stuff.
strong word, strong principle name.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden the Goonies came out, and I was like, "What the heck is the Goonies? Why would they name themselves after like a kid movie?"
Because Goonies never say die.
Goonies never say die,
And then I
baby.
went to one of their meetings, and I got it real fast,
yeah.
and I was thinking, "This is amazing culture, actually." So
I got it from a couple thousand miles away, but it was really impressive. Like maybe talk about.
I feel like that was just a dig.
I'm
I feel
just
like that was a
saying.
dig at me
I'm
a little
just
bit.
saying. I love it. It
we had-
called to me. It was in my vein. You know what I
Tell
mean?
us about the Goonies, man.
We had a great time with the Goonies. I love building teams. I love building brands. This was one of my favorites by far. Goonies Never Say Die was a mantra that everyone could get behind. And we actually, when we first got the keys to the Atlantic City office, this is Atlantic City, New Jersey, we were driving guys from Toms River an hour south into Market because we didn't have a space yet. It was like 7 or 8 months before we actually got into a space. So we were doing meetings in like the Wawa parking lot, like out of the trunk of my car.
Is that like a gas station?
Yeah,
or
it's
something?
like a gas
You
station.
don't know what a Wawa is?
Wawa.
You've never heard of Wawa?
I've been to Sheets.
Sheets is
Similar,
nice.
similar
nice.
to a
Sheets.
Sheets.
Actually, I think
Similar
might be
to
the
Sheets.
goat.
It's kind of like Quick Check.
Wawa's yeah, QT. It's like the
Okay.
big one. But what with the Wawa, what is really nice is you can order your lunch at the gas
dang.
pump.
Oh yeah.
So it's just
man.
touchscreen.
Like a
order
Sonic?
your lunch. You walk in there and the lunch is good. It's not like your
Like a
typical
Buc-ee's.
gas. Yeah.
Yeah, you pretty much need nothing else. You
I
don't
feel
need
like I've been
7-Eleven.
to
you don't
every
need
gas
Dunkin'.
station. I've never been
Buc-ee's
to a
is
Wawa.
the ultimate. I mean,
Buc-ee's
there's
is,
nothing will
Buc-ee's
top
is the
Buc-ee's.
Cabela's of gas stations.
Yeah. Nothing will top Buc-ee's. But anyway, Wawa's nice.
So while we were having team meetings in the parking lot of a Wawa and the back of a diner.
Hey, kids today don't know, dude. They
Yeah,
don't
so
know.
we were just, and honestly, down there it's very rural. So, I was kind of like bussing people from Tom's River down there just to try and get things going. And we were recruiting people. Juan Araya was down there with me, and we were back to back trying to figure it out. And it just seemed right. It was like the Goondocks, you know what I mean? Like we were down in the Goondocks, and it just started seeming right. Because at first we were playing around with some names, and I'm like, let's not impulsively jump in on anything. We don't really have an identity yet as a group, and it was like taking time before enough people got together that we were like started to realize that we were sort of a little bit of the misfits. We didn't really have an identity. People were just kind of coming in from all different directions. Where most teams, it's like the local group from that area, and they have a little bit more of a community and an identity and their friends. And this was just real hodgepodge, like people from all over. So it just fit perfect. When we did the launch, it was awesome. I had the Superman shirt, I had a bandana on, and we did a whole introduction.
That's cool.
We had a lot of fun with it. So it was a good time.
You guys had good swag too. I just remember it was fun. Like for anybody that's listening that hasn't like branded a team or a group, just make it fun, man. Like all of the intense names are taken. Let's have some fun. I always think of like, what'd you name your band or something like that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like go for that. Like you can do anything. There's really no rules on it. And
Yeah.
I loved that from afar, what I saw with that is it didn't seem to be one person's thing. It seemed to be everybody's thing, which is really cool. Like that was something that like stood out.
There was a lot of buy-in on it, and then we ended up having like these subgroups. Like that's when we started to figure out squads for the first time. Like at that time, I don't know if you remember, but like the teams this was got to be 2015, 2016. The teams at Vivint, they were capped at like 25 people, in a team. After
Like you
that,
couldn't hire more than 20?
no, like the managers were pulling their
right.
hair out for having to try and manage over 25. It was a ceiling.
Yeah.
And we started to play around with, if we broke this down and you had like a group of 15 with one manager and a group of 15 with another, and maybe we brought someone that was like an up and comer and made him that squad leader position, we're kind of create this track record. And that was actually the big claim to fame with the Goonies. We promoted 18 people to district manager in 1 year. Wow. Because we kept putting the next up and comer as the squad leader. It started with Jake Chamberlain and then his brother PJ, and then and one after another, they just kept going into managing a group of like 10 to 15, and they were able to show the director and the VP at the time headcount growth week to week. Like, can we hit a weekly quota? What happens on low weeks? And it was a balance of new hires, a balance of what we call the underdogs. Those are like, when you kind of been there for a while, but then you sort of plateau for a little bit. And then the top talent, like it's those three equal categories, and they were growing it. So they had this opportunity to show, what can I do with a smaller team? Guys were getting promoted because they were able to like measurably, we could see the impact, that's the toughest thing. And like top performers are like, hey, I'm doing 20, 30 installs a quarter and I can't get promoted. It's like, you're not doing anything other than your personal volume. You're not adding any, so the squad leader kind of started to expand from there. We're like, hey, we can do 4 squads, 5 squads. There's no limit to this if we do it the right way and start to really empower the up and comers they were not really getting showcased at the time, because it was either rep or district manager. There was nothing in between. We never did assists back then. The culture was so different. So the Goonies, we had the Chunks, the Sloths, and the Mikeys. So it was like the Chunks.
That's so much better than like
Dude,
the
it's
serious
so much
stuff.
better.
The Chunks was like the rotating squad leader. Like you get promoted, and it was like a new Chunk squad leader. It was a blast.
Oh,
Well,
that's great.
there's been several iterations of squad leader since then, but I don't remember squad leaders ever being a thing pre-Goonies. So I think, I don't know, can we officially credit Anthony in the Goonies with?
We'll start to get some text messages if you do, but I'm down.
I don't remember it prior to that.
We used to have, I mean, the
20,
standard
2015.
Yeah.
I don't think there was squads before that. So
standard leadership makeup was 2 leaders for a team.
Yep.
But you were kept like, and it's funny because hearing you say that, like that hasn't changed. Like still, people like you can pretty much handle 15 people. That's pretty much like what you can handle. And honestly, that's probably pushing it. Like you do a really good job.
I think
with
12, depending on the makeup of the group. I don't think any one leader should have more than 15 people in their stewardship.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because actually me and Juan did a lot of experimenting. I really pushed. So Nick Hansen was the director at the time. I was really pushing his wantingness to like give us a creative license. He didn't really want to do that. He kind of had the mold. There were 8 offices between Pennsylvania, New Jersey was the makeup of Grit. It was like 2 offices in PA, 6 offices in Jersey at the time. And we were like the new kid on the block. And so he really didn't want us to like have much of creative license. And we kept pushing it and saying like, we need to do things a little differently here. Like we've got to think outside the box. You know, our geography is different than the way these other teams are set up. And 15 was the max. If you went to 16, the squad leader or manager like was spinning plates. And when this plate was, when they saw this plate was starting to slow down, this plate all of a sudden, right? They're having to go back and forth and juggle. And 8 was the bottom. Like if you went to 7, it didn't feel like a team anymore. It felt like it was really hard to, you know, kind of rally. You know, at 8, there was accountability partners. There were running mates. There was competition. There was like, you had a balance of some new hires and that like that mix was there, the balance. At 7, you didn't have it. So 8 to 15 was like the sweet spot. And we just kept with that model. And honestly, my only regret with the whole thing was when Daryl came into the mix, they bumped me up as a co-director with Zach Allred, and we had like the South Jersey division, we were calling it. It was like an office in PA, 2 in South Jersey. And my only regret was that we didn't expand the brand because the brand was so great and the model we had was so great, but I didn't want to like, I was kind of doing what Nick had done to me. I didn't want to like, you know, take away from, you know, what was already there and what, like how people were building. And
it's a tough balance because a lot of it too, like a lot of like the best brands that I've seen or been a part of, like they serve their purpose for a time too. And you can go the other way where it's like, this thing doesn't really serve its purpose anymore. We probably should have killed it a long time ago, but people are like beholden to it or they have like, you know, like affection towards it. And so I don't know. Sometimes like the other side of it is like, man, it was an awesome time. It was a very unique chapter and it was what it was. And now, but we should do some throwback gear, like from the very best brands back in the day, like some cool throwback gear.
The GNSD runs deep. Anybody that was a Goonie back in the day, like Joe Rupel, like all these guys, they always talk about it. It was one of our best chapters. And honestly, credit to Nick that he had, at least he started to see that the change was healthy. And he started to loosen up the reins a little bit and say, all right, let's give these guys a chance. I mean, truth be told, when we first got that office, we were the side volume. Like we had a chip on our shoulder. I remember distinctly we were in a conference down in Maryland and they were going around office by office and giving out quotas. Like, all right, so Tom's River, you guys, we need you to pull like 1.6 megs. And they're like, all right, cool. Princeton, we need you guys at like 1.2. Can you guys handle that? The manager's like looking back like, yeah, we could do that. And like when they got to us, they were like, okay, Atlantic City, if you guys could do like 800 kilowatts installed, like that'd be great. I'm like, what? I looked at Juan. I was like, did he like literally just call us side volume in front of all the other teams? We were
just get the scraps.
We were
the spillover?
We were heated, man. We were like on a mission at that point, and we called a shot. We said we were going to hit 1.5 megs that quarter that we started to get things organized, and we on the very last day we hit 1.5. Nick came in for the next eval, and he was like, hey, you know, you guys did it. Like, what do you guys have planned for the next quarter? What do you guys want to do? And we had it mapped out. You know, the vision was, before vision was like really talked about widely, we had quarterly visions. You know, me and Juan would get together and have a little, you know, diner time with a napkin notes, you know.
Sorry to interrupt, but I remember hearing a manager training, and Ant and Juan were doing the training, and they were talking about how I think it was like every Sunday night you guys had either a call or got together and basically planned the week.
Yep.
Walk us through that. And I know right now, that was back then, all the teams used to meet on Mondays, so you were definitely having to meet like the day before your meeting. This is probably part of the reason why we switched it to Tuesday, like one of the many reasons why we switched the first meeting to Tuesdays. But walk us through kind of what your weekly prep is for, management, and then.
Yeah, I mean, then it was interesting. I think we were very much in sync. Like now, the pros and cons, like with Sunrun, it's such a big company and you have multiple divisions. The plus side is that you have multiple divisions and you sort of bear, share the burden. The downside is that, you're not getting that like one-on-one time with the EM, or at least one district manager really kind of needs to build that relationship to make sure that you guys are constantly communicating. But it's a cruise ship, so you have to you really need to sort of stay within your circles. Back then, it was just like, I don't know. It was like Wild Wild West. This was like a little speedboat, right? So it was just you, the OM, the OA, right?
I remember going into the OM's office, and sitting down, and he had a whiteboard of accounts that were messy. And being like, dude, I am not leaving until we have a solution for these 15 accounts. And you would just hack.
Right.
So good and bad. It was effective. You could get it done, but I'm so glad we don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, I'd say probably the best, the creative process of building was honestly more casual. It's just me and Juan getting together, a diner, an IHOP or something, and we would sit there. I remember one time Juan was like,
couple of guys at the IHOP.
He's like, dude, he goes, one time he would always, Juan was I used to call him the diplomat. He would always have these relationships built, and he was great at the wine and dine part, recruiting wise. But he'd come up with these ideas, and the two of us together were we had really good chemistry, masterminding. And so he would start the idea, and I would throw and it would just go back and forth, and we just kind of ping pong back and forth until we came up with this amazing idea that we were about to go out and execute, and we put the plan together. And it was really organic. But at first, we weren't in sync. That happened. So I was overbearing, and I actually called myself out because I saw him starting to scale back a little bit, and he was missing Maryland. He was coming from the Maryland market. He was missing home a little bit, and I could see he was kind of pulling back, and he was a really strong leader. He had installed 33 personal the quarter before. I was at 30. I was a little intimidated, and he came in, and we were trying to get in sync. We were like oil and water, and we ended up like peanut butter and jelly, And so in the beginning, I said to him hey man, I get that I'm a strong voice, but you're a powerful leader too. Let's just give each other a little space. You want to take Mondays, I'll take Thursdays. Run the meeting how you want to run it. I'll run it how I want to run it. The big picture stuff we get together, and we just started to row in the same direction. And that's when things started really, kind of happening for us there. And it was cool. It was a good chapter.
That is cool. What are your staying in that culture vein, what are kind of some of the principles you've learned? What are Ant-isms on culture? Because that was a good time and that was a good start, but you've recreated it multiple times. I mean, we'll talk about the business you started and the region that you're running now, but what have you learned and what are core beliefs on culture?
Oh man. Well, it's chemistry between people. I think the thing when you see the challenge with culture, it usually is because you're picking up all these individual recruits off of, say, Indeed or Monster, right? These people that don't know each other. And anytime I've ever seen a team really kick off fast, they came in with a group of people, and it was a group of friends, and they were all trying to compete against each other. And then that group invited their friend group. And now all of a sudden it doubles in size and triples in size. And before you know it, the rep referral cascading waterfall is just it's this it's uncontrollable at that point, right? Where in the beginning, the tough thing to break through the culture is getting people to connect, because it's all about relationships and connections at the end of the day. And so if we're going to be in front of the room and banging a drum, or we're going to, say we're going to do takeout Tuesdays or whatever it is, the buy-in is going to come if they care what everybody else in the room has to say about it. If they don't care about the other people because they're I just met this dude, then that's where it doesn't really take off until that magic starts to come out. You know what I mean? Like I go to the Wolfpack in Central Jersey and you could see the magic. Like these guys are just, it just feels like it's palpable in the room when they have a team meeting, you know? And the leadership has, like when they're speaking in front of the room, they have such a platform that everyone is there, like ready to take notes and ready to listen. And they're just so, you know, students of the game trying to absorb the information and get out there, and they're all trying to compete. There's just a massive buy-in because the group just, you could see how it snowballed from one, you know, a few rep referrals. But I would say that, like, you know, connection is probably the biggest underlying theme. And the faster you could get people connecting and like genuinely connecting, like they actually like the other side, the person on the other side of the table, then the faster the culture starts to really take off. It doesn't matter what the name of the team is. It doesn't matter, you know, the mantra. It just matters that everybody is sort of connected by it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why the Goonies worked. That's why, you know, you got to figure out what connects a bunch of people that have never, you know, that are strangers to each other. Like think about like your high school group of friends or your college group of friends, how close you guys were. You shared these memories that happens in time, right? It takes time for you to create something that you're going to look back on. It was like a classic memory. When people meet for the first time in a room, it's cold. They're like, dude, I don't know these people. I don't have any memories with them. Yeah. You know what I mean? So trying to recreate that as fast as possible, create some memories for the first time, I think helps speed up that connection. And you just hope that you have people that actually like sync up and like each other and want to get to work, you know?
I was going to chime in real quick. You talk a lot about that friendship synergy that you get. I know you have a really strong, like rooted friend group.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you about that because it's something, you know, years ago when you first worked with us, I was always really, it wasn't jealous. It was more just like, I really admired this like friend group these guys had. And it was you and Jordan Maya, Brandon Seidel,
Yep.
Mike Monteleone, and, you know, all these guys. Can you just walk us through, just kind of quickly catch up the street on, you know, how you guys all met, your kind of quick story, and then how you guys all ended up at Vivint Solar?
Yeah. So I guess it started with, so it was 2013 that I was in Vivint. I met Brandon Seidel at like this off the path social function kind of thing.
Was it a Wawa's?
No, it was like it was a vineyard on Long Island. An ex-girlfriend,
fancy.
Yeah, an ex-girlfriend of mine was like connected somehow with Kent Shumway. I don't know if you guys remember Kent. And Kent brought Brandon along on the event. I didn't have two nickels to rub together. Like I could pull out, you know, balls of string and moths out of my pockets at the time. And my ex-girlfriend wanted $200 to get in this wine tour thing together. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to get in good graces with her, you know, and I didn't really have any money, but I got there and Brandon was there and he was, I want to say he was like 24 at the time. He was making a lot of money, great bonuses. Long Island had just opened their first office. There was only like 13 guys in the office. And it was a Sunday and this guy had not a care in the world. You know, I could just tell he was just so confident, you know, and he just was so sure of his opportunity. And I had an ice cream company at the time that was going into the off season. And I didn't know what I was going to do going in because I came in like late September.
Hold on, by ice cream company, you mean like you had an ice cream truck you drive around? Or what? What was the ice cream truck?
You had a hustle.
Yeah, I had a hustle, man.
You can't just hit us with that and expect us to not ask
I've been an
about it.
entrepreneur my whole life. I had this, I had a business-to-business ice cream company that I would distribute to restaurants and delis and
What
stuff
kind
like
of
that.
ice cream?
It was frozen fruit bars.
Okay.
And these like 3
La
ounce.
Michoacanas or what?
It was like a frozen strawberry, coconut, banana.
But have you had La
What was your
Michoacana?
best seller?
Dude, those are so
Strawberry and coconut.
Strawberry
Strawberry and coconut best sellers.
They're like my
Classic.
favorite thing. It's like the ones that I like get down here. Like they're like this Mexican company, and it's like this fruit and cream. And if you find them at the right gas station, dude, I'll do anything. For that.
Yeah, we did all right. I mean, I just bought a truck. I knew the supplier through a family friend, and I created 164 stops from scratch my first summer out.
So you just went to these businesses and were like, hey.
Yeah,
I can get you guys ice cream at a.
I was having a hard time at first, and then I realized I needed visual. So I went on the manufacturer's website and printed out all the different ice cream flavors and created like little, like a
So this is you're done with college at this point. This is you like first entrepreneurial.
yes.
kind of
At
thing.
this point, I'm like 26, 27. And I have an ice cream truck that does now. There's 164 stops. I created a route. And I was going into the fall, but I also, and the winter, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. I also wasn't really liking what I was doing. I mean, I wanted to be a business owner, but I was like a small business owner. I had a lot of expenses. My cousin Rico left the truck unplugged one night. Everything melted.
Freaking Rico,
I
dude.
could have killed Rico.
Rico, the truck's unplugged.
I'm like, and if I put the claim in, it would have like increased my premium. I'm like,
Where's Rico right now, dude?
Rico's NYPD right now.
All right, I was gonna say, I think he owes you a couple accounts.
I know. Yeah,
You know?
tell me about it.
So you're fresh off the ice cream.
Fresh
season.
off the ice cream truck.
Just thinking, what's my next move
Yep.
here?
And
How are you going to get in the hot chocolate business at this point?
yeah, I'm thinking
you
soup.
were thinking everything. Soup.
I'm thinking soup.
That's
Everybody
what I'm
needs
thinking.
soup.
It's like snowplow lawn mow. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like you got to figure out.
Exactly. So I'm like, all right. I actually, what happened was I was at the same time that I met Brandon, I was realizing that the supplier for the ice cream was like doing bad business practice. And so I'm like, I got to get out of this thing. And I wasn't going to sell it to somebody else. I literally broke down brick by brick after I had built it. I broke it down. I had left even coolers. I bought like 50 coolers from China, and like I left a lot of stuff in the street. I tried to sell it off on Craigslist. And at that same time, Brandon and Mike Brand, I was having conversations with them about me coming over. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to dump this thing. And I came over with $35,000 in debt, and which for me then I didn't really have any money. I don't even know how I got the money to start this thing. So I just didn't feel right selling it as a route to somebody else, knowing what this guy was, how he's nickel and diming.
How is it a scam? Like at the end of the day, they're still eating the ice cream.
No,
bars.
he was just nickel and diming me as a supplier. He would if I went to buy something from him for, we could have gotten a deep discount of like $10. He would just tack on $5. I'm like, dude, I'm a supplier. I'm a distributor for you.
I thought he wasn't getting conflict-free strawberries or something. How are these things getting farmed out there?
He was always trying to. It was always something shady.
You couldn't switch over to like Haagen-Dazs or something. You couldn't.
I wish.
Listen, you don't just.
Haagen-Dazs is a blue chip.
Hey, listen,
it's a blue chip.
Listen, Blue Bunny.
Like Baby Bell or Blue Bunny.
I think it was Blue Bunny. They're owned by some wise guys out in New York.
Yeah, they're blood in, blood out, dude.
You can't even man. I tried putting some selling ice cream into another guy's cooler once. You don't mess with another guy's cooler. I learned that real quick. But
you got a finger show up in your cooler for,
as a warning
for next time.
Like so just so we're clear, when I walk into a gas station and they have that little cooler by the door, you have the little horizontal door or whatever.
Yep.
The bars in there, it's not an accident which bars are in those coolers. Like it's like you're paying to have that real estate. I'm guessing, right?
Well, they own the coolers. A lot of those store owners don't even own the equipment.
Oh, so
they don't own the slab.
The ice cream company just brings in the cooler. Here's our stuff. So then if rogue bars end up in their cooler,
exactly,
hell to pay.
Exactly. So I was selling. It's real estate essentially in the baskets. You know what I mean? I was negotiating with store owners and say like, because I would come back and there would be like frozen snap peas in my cooler. I'm like, hey, this is my cooler.
Yeah, you can't put your frozen snap
right,
peas in
you
there.
gotta buy more ice cream. And they're like, hey, well, we also need. I'm like, all right, listen, I'll give you a half of a basket if you buy the ice cream from me. Negotiating real estate, my own cooler. It was crazy. So I
you can't keep your eyes on these coolers at all times.
So fast forward, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get out of this. I'm gonna give a shot. I built this thing from scratch. I know how to create business. Yep. I'm gonna do this thing with solar. And me and Brandon weren't really that tight back then. We were like, Brandon was a really young leader, figuring things out. He was growing, and I got in, and it was right around the time like Jesse Plotnick and Brandon and Brett Goldstein. Like we were all like weeks apart from each other getting hired. It was really cool that we're still like friends today and we still like network today. But Jordan Maya, I called Mike Monteleone, and I was like, hey, I think I found something for us. Like we made a pact in college. Like, hey, if you find something that you think will be good for your family, like call me. If I find something, I'm going to call you. We made that pact. And I never forgot it. It was like years later, and I called him. I'm like, dude, I think I found something. Whatever you're doing, stop. You got to come check this thing out. And I was so fired up. I hadn't even like started. I wasn't even like day one in. I was just knew this thing was going to take off. And he's like, look, I'm caught up with my job right now. He was working like Westchester Board of Elections, kind of like doing something with ballot boxes or something like that, like real cushy job. He's like, call Jordan. Jordan's working at the bars in Hofstra. He's looking for something. I'm like, all right. So I call Jordan. Jordan's like, all right, I'm going to get down. So Jordan comes in like a month after me and is smoking it. You know, we all kind of had like a different sort of, you know, learning curve. Within 3 months or so, Brandon is like getting promoted down to South Jersey and asked me if I wanted to come with him. And I really didn't want to go at the time because when you're from Long Island, you don't really leave Long Island. You know, it's a very tight community. And I called Mike Brand, who was my like mentor at the time, and he encouraged me to go and said, hey, you could be a part of like, you know, the grassroots leadership. You're getting started. No one's down there. You guys are just going to like, you know, build it from scratch. Like, and you're like one of the more senior guys. I'm like, I don't even really know what's going on yet. I hadn't even paid the debt off yet. You know, so fast forward, I'm down in South Jersey somehow with Brandon. We're like at odds, you know, for the first full year. I couldn't figure this thing out. I was really struggling. I had a really long learning curve. And
leading or selling in a different spot?
Selling. I was struggling selling. But Jordan was crushing it. Jordan was doing like 10 ACs a week after week in Long Island. And then a few months went by. I was thinking about quitting a couple times. I really was like struggling with sticking around because me and Brandon weren't seeing eye to eye. And Jordan and Brandon both got promoted to Tom's River. And Jordan asked me if I would come over there. I'm like, dude, I don't know with Brandon, you know? And then I got there and Brandon started reading, like heavily reading like John C. Maxwell books. And when I got there, like his whole attitude had changed.
Wow.
Because now this was like his office. And he just was so much more appreciative that I would be there to support. And me and him like started to really change, like the connection bit started to happen. You know what I mean? We weren't in sync. We were oil and water like me and Juan. And then all of a sudden went to peanut butter and jelly. You know what I mean? And as soon as me and him and Jordan started to like get in sync, things started to change, the whole dynamic. And a year went by. Me and Jordan were sending paychecks to Mo and trying to just get him fired up. And finally a year went by and Mo said, all right, I'm going to come over. So we've been tight a long time. I mean, the four of us have been, I know Mo since I met Mo in my undergrad at CW Post, and he knew Jordan from high school. And then, you know, Brandon, I just met randomly at that vineyard. It changed my life.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys have I love that team. I mean, that was like 2013, 14-ish, and Long Island was the number 1 team in the country at that point.
That's where I almost went when I came into solar.
Really?
Yeah, it was the best spots were there. Maryland and California was here, but it wasn't doing very well.
Yeah.
And the comp was way less back then.
Yeah.
And so I remember like sitting up with my wife looking for, it was the,
Well, they paid us per kilowatt, right?
Yeah. Right.
I can't remember
so
how
they
it
were
was.
small. It was kilowatts. So
But
and it
the
was
average
smaller
system
here.
in Cali was like super small at the time.
Yeah. And so, but I remember we were looking for schools and houses. I still can see one of the houses that we were looking at. Like, it's crazy how, but you're, you know, throughout your career, it's been like that. Like, you'll go where the opportunity is. You've done it multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to talk about that. But before, keep going with that story, because ultimately you guys had success, ended up going off and starting your own business with those best friends.
Yeah. Once we were selling together, it was, I mean, that magic that I was talking about, the connection, the chemistry, we were the culture. Like, we were it. When we walked in the room, it was like, we didn't really even need much more than that, because everybody that came on, they just attached to the enthusiasm and the excitement and the positivity, because we were all at that point, you know, I mean, Mo and Jordan were friends before I knew them in high school. Then I got really close with them later on, and then Brandon came, and like it was like the 4 best friends, you know, like we were just inseparable at that point. And then I met guys like Jake Chamberlain, and you know, you start growing these relationships. And when I left, I decided to leave. It was 5.5 years in. You know, at that point, Brandon and Jordan had made a move with Mike Brand to the West Coast, so they were kind of out of the picture. Mo was a little disconnected. He was still up in New York. I was down in Jersey, and we like lost that chemistry was lost. You know, we're just independently doing our thing.
Yeah, proximity was gone.
Right. So it just so happened like it was like the perfect storm of everybody feeling some sort of way about things. For me personally, it was just like I would say I started feeling less safe. Like I started feeling like I was excluded, I guess. Like I wasn't a part of the original. I never sold alarms, so I wasn't part of the original Vivint group. I just came in. I was East Coast, Roman Catholic. I was like just never sold doors before, never did solar. I was just not part of the original group, and I felt outcasted in a way that I didn't have the relationships, on my speed dial, and that was my biggest regret. So my regret was like, if I could have dialed it back, I would have said, maybe just try a little harder to build those, like fly out to Cali, spend some more time with, like Jason Dielstra or like Chance, or like get to know some of these guys that I didn't really have strong relationships with. And instead I was, immature at the time. I was like, hey, I'm just going to go do my own thing with my buddies, not realizing how high of a road that is. Like how difficult that is to go. You're going uphill the entire time. And so we all left to create a sales dealer.
Talk to us about that. Because, I'm sure there's people in the company that have thought about it. They see these people on Facebook groups and all this kind of stuff. And so you leave, you start your own dealer with your 3 best friends.
Yep.
I mean, I can't think, and they're all like very competent people, right?
Yeah,
so, I mean, don't you have do you have your masters? I can't remember.
I have a dual major in marketing.
So, yeah,
and
you guys are all very competent, very good at sales.
Mm-hmm.
They've all managed teams. Like if there were 4 people primed to go like start something together, like these would be the 4 guys to go do it. So you guys go do it. You have, I'd say moderate to good success with it. But like ultimately what brought you back? Like why?
So what I realized was, I think we did it for about 3.5 years. We got to about 8 states. It's very, like we're vertically integrated. This thing is very horizontal. Like you're talking, it is really we were proud of the brand that we built.
What's the difference for like someone listening who's maybe new to the industry, they work here, like what's the difference between working at Sunrun and dealer life?
Accountability, period. Like fulfillment partners have 0 accountability. Like they're getting paid to do a job. And once they do the job, they're like, all right, we're out. We got paid. They don't have service. They don't have like dedicated service.
You're saying
teams.
Accountability to like customers.
Yes,
and like
accountability to customers.
Not like accountability amongst your peers to sell.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I'm talking ops. Like you're not on the same team. You know what I mean? So we had a brand that was us. And then what were we selling? We were selling whatever paper that fulfillment partner that we were working with was pushing at the time. And they would change it constantly. So the big challenge was that it was inconsistent for the reps. So the reps, every month it was like, what's the flavor of the month? Like you'd come into work and be like, all right, well, guys, it's not going to be, Sunrun today. It's going to be, we're going to be doing dividend loans. Like it was just like you're constantly changing up whatever was available. And so it was super difficult to keep them, like motivated to like promote to a customer because they get excited about it. And there was a lot of different websites you had to go through in order to, like, we don't have one. You have one prospecting tool, be able to run credits. That tool talks to, one, transfers all the information. You have to manually enter it. Like you're working smart, you're working fast. There you're working, it's very lopsided. Like you're really having to do a lot of manual kind of entry, and we don't have credit runs. So like you're getting a lot more failed credits at the table and things like that. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is operationally, it's a nightmare because there's no accountability. And for the ones that have scale, like the ones that have actually taken it, is one that comes to mind. They're good in certain markets. They're okay in certain markets. And in markets that they're not in, that they're trying to be in, they're just subbing out to other fulfillment partners.
Oh, so it's getting further and further away.
It's getting so far away. I had, for somebody with our company at the time, it was 5. A customer would have to deal with 5 different companies. They'd have to deal with me. There was like 2 Connect partners, an install partner, and then if they were lucky, Sunrun on the back end. But because we were part of that channel, they didn't get the same support as Sunrun. They didn't get the same pricing. They didn't get the same warranties. They got like limited version of what we have here. So that was one. I was already kind of like, hey, if we're going to be entrepreneurs, we know what we're kind of getting ourselves into here. So I was okay with that challenge. But then Daryl reached back out. Well, first off, Zach Allred reached out to me every single year since I was gone. And
hey, man, that's how you do it.
I got to give credit to Zach.
You're
Zach,
on the list. You're on the wish list.
Listen,
right at the very
he
top.
tried me. He kept trying me. I kept saying thanks for the consideration and putting him off. Daryl 3.5 years in, he called me at a time. I was actually confused why he was calling me for a lunch. I thought he was calling to see if maybe Sunrun could be the fulfillment partner for Revo. And then in the back of my mind, I was like, man, it's always a recruiting kind of,
You thought you were recruiting Daryl.
Well,
maybe he's looking for an opportunity.
I thought we would get some consistent fulfillment. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, this could be, because we couldn't find it for years. It's just like impossible. In fact, Landino ended up creating his own company because of it. Like he wanted consistency. And we were at
the number one thing we hear when we bring people back.
Yeah.
Is they want consistency. It's funny because it's like you feel like you're touching on it, but it's like you feel like, oh, these 3 things that I think sound better over there, you don't realize you have to sacrifice other things for those. And it's so funny that the people that I see that left, like, wanting to like ride their stallion into the lightning, come back and they're like, I just want a place where it's like, where I know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
And I'd say what they don't realize is like, you're not fighting for anything. Like what I love so once I got to that meeting with Daryl and I realized what the meeting was about, I had to tell my buddies what was going on. I'm like, hey, listen, I took a meeting thinking that it could be, for potential fulfillment. It ended up being like an opportunity. I got to kind of start to consider, what we're going to do here, because we were like a gun for hire. We weren't creating any legacy. There was no longevity in what we were doing. You know what I mean? Like it was just whatever we were selling for the day. If the bottom fell out on whatever that fulfillment partner was pushing at the time, that was it. We were done. We weren't all fighting towards something. And, with Daryl, like with the equity plan is what really mainly one of my biggest points of coming back over. Cause I'm like, man, I was selling Sunrun for 3.5 years before I came back to Sunrun. Mm-hmm. So at that point I was actually selling Sunrun longer than the Vivint guys. So I was kind of brokering, and 9 times out of 10, they were with Sunrun. Mm-hmm. Like they would, after I would put it on in front of them. So I'm seeing the market research of homeowners, not knowing that like this opportunity would come back up down the road. You don't really get second chances like that. And it came back up down the road by chance. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I know for a fact that Sunrun is the most desired program out of all of these. I've been testing in the market for 3.5 years.
You saw that from a customer's perspective.
Oh yeah, at the table doing CAD sets myself. Yeah. And then
I love that the old dogs still call them CADs, because that's what I call them.
Yeah.
The young reps are like, oh yeah, I got a VC, but the old guys are like, dude, I got a CAD tonight. I can't, a computer animated drawing or whatever it is. Dude, I got one.
Yeah,
and I'm going to show it to them.
Now they're calling them cap sits. I'm like, what's a cap sit? Yeah. Oh, okay, cap sits.
You mean a CAD? It's a CAD, bro.
Well, they have CAD sits and they got cap sits now. So, but yeah, I was seeing at the table homeowners like the performance guarantee was the strongest out of all the other companies. They like the transfer guarantee was really big, and then the longevity of Sunrun, it just outbeat whatever I had to show them. It didn't even compare. Even if the price was a little bit higher with Sunrun, the terms were so much stronger than anything else I was showing them. They're like, yeah, you know what, for like a cent or so higher, I'd rather go with something that I know is going to be give me the performance guarantee, et cetera. And so Daryl didn't have to sell me on Sunrun. He really didn't have to. When he started talking about the equity, I was like, so I'm already pushing Sunrun paper essentially, but I don't really have an opportunity to like try and work toward the long haul of like building up equity, to be able to take the equity, the vests. And I was like, yeah, this is great, because I'm already,
but
it's my agenda.
You guys all, I mean, the 4 of you guys are all very much entrepreneurs, and so the dealer idea, I think, scratched that itch for you. Mm-hmm. But do you feel like that itch can be scratched here as well, but people just don't? It's like everyone wants to like own their own thing. Not everyone, but people want to own their own thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like what you're describing, when you're describing the dealer, you actually don't really have equity, because the only thing that's really valuable is the sales group. Anyway, it's like the salespeople are really, like, in terms of just like, well, we want to sell our dealer to someone, or we want to sell our company to somebody. Like, you're not selling leased vans and leased warehouses and things like that to a company. Like they don't need all that. It's just like the personnel that they want, right? So how do
they don't want your liabilities.
Yeah, they don't want your liabilities. So they just. But I feel like I'm hearing that you're actually scratching that entrepreneur like itch here, even maybe more so than in the dealer life. Like, how do you like?
Yeah.
So I guess my question is more like, you have somebody here who's like, man, it'd be really cool to open our own thing one day. Why would you say it's actually not what you think it is, and this is actually that already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, Sunrun is the biggest player, right? So you're not going to be able to compete with the smaller players. You just don't have the new hire pay that you could offer, the equity plan that you could offer. You know, I mean, the swag is great. You don't realize like actually how great it is when you're in business for yourself. I remember smaller dealers. I remember guys calling me and they were talking to me about, you know, the person that decided to go out. Now they're the president of their own dealer. And he's like, hey, I'm linked up with so-and-so. And I'm like, okay, cool. How's it going over there? He's like, well, I got to buy my own shirts and I got to this and that. I'm like, what? I'm like, they don't even provide a uniform for you. Like we were like sharp enough to get us to like, you know, be a reputable business, but we weren't marketable for the long haul. We didn't have anything other than a sales team. Like I said, we were like guns for hire. We were just, and if we did anything that was like a new hire pay, it was very limited because that was our capital that's going out in the street that we're investing in it, right? And so we can't really compete with the big dogs. You know, like at the end of the day, you could be nimble and maybe you might beat out a couple of deals here and there, but for the long haul, like I'm looking for a career. I'm not looking for a job. And for a career, Vivint was just like the clear choice. It just made sense. Can you be an entrepreneur here? 1,000%. Suburbanpreneurship is the embodiment of that. It's like you are in the street, you have your own brand, you have CEO mentality, then you can have a business within a business. Doesn't mean that you have to go out and get your own truck and make it, you know, Monaco Solar. That's actually not cool. Well, I've had a truck for ice cream.
It's cooler than Suntuity, I'll tell you that much.
I had an ice cream truck. I'm telling you, it's not that cool.
Monaco ice cream.
You know, look, the ice cream truck had wear and tear and insurance.
What was the ice cream company called?
Oh, I don't even want to tell you the name.
Come on.
Of it.
Drop it.
It was called New York Frozen Fruit. That was
it's not bad.
New York Frozen
it's not
Fruit.
bad. It's not like Fruity Tooties or something. New York Frozen Fruit. It's fine.
Sounds legit.
Actually, that was my
That's it.
DBA.
Okay, keep going. Keep going.
The real name was Chunk So Fruity.
Yeah,
Chunk
dude.
So Fruity was the real name.
Fruity, baby.
That was the one that, you know, me and Rico got out there and made it happen. You know?
Rico, dude, I got to meet this guy.
Yeah.
I'm glad you talked about that because you're a perfect example of, you know, what Adam was saying is a lot of people think they want to be entrepreneurs, but entrepreneur comes with it a very big risk, and most entrepreneurs are not successful. So we see like the big stories, and we're like, I want that. But the thing that draws me to the street is the fact that I can create, but I have all of the upside and I don't have really any of the risk.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Like it's very rare because if we didn't have an equity plan and we didn't have, call it factory support, right? It would be a different story. Like what if you had to like, it's like a lot of places where you take a job or you invest in an opportunity, you have to buy in. You got to pay to go to college. You got to pay to get trained. You got to pay to get your warehouse space.
Right.
Even like a franchise, you got to pay for the training and the uniforms and the stuff. Here, you literally come in and immediately, if you produce something, you get paid. There's no financial investment to access this unreal financial opportunity. And then as it starts going well, you get ownership in a business that you're not a founder of. And I recognize that really early on. And honestly, it's a very unique thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I wish that some people before, like, we didn't have the same thing when you were here and left. And to your guys' credit, like, we dealt with Revo here, like in our backyard, like, and it was pretty good business. Like of the dealers and things that went out there, like you guys took care of your customers. You had a good reputation. You didn't like, you weren't like jackasses coming after everyone trying to burn down the old house. Like it actually was like cool. We always had good relationships with everybody. But you are limited and the risk you take is massive. So your upside's lower and your risk is exponentially higher.
Yeah. And the reason, I mean, the thing about it, the reason why you go and do something like that is for control, because you think you're going to get more control. What we realized after we had made the move is we actually had less control because everything is, you're dealing with vendors. And once your pipeline is built up and you have a bad, something goes wrong with a vendor or a fulfillment partner and you want to pivot, your whole pipeline is with them. It's not that easy to just pivot. And then you're like, are they going to pay us out on jobs? And it's really not what it's, seems to be cracked up to be. I mean, people go out there, they put up a couple flashy flyers up on Instagram and they want to promote their next new shiny thing. And I mean, we know how thin of ice that they skate on to run that business from having done it. I mean, mind you, I mean, we had a good go at it. We had a great, we made it work, but we also, once you leave, there's that like sense of pride of like, should we go back? No, we can't go back. We already said we were leaving.
Now your ego's in the way.
So your ego's in the way. But we, again, I mean, that's the main reason. It's not like great reasons, but then maturity starts to, develop, and you start to realize like, hey, let's start to think about this a little differently. How do we want to go about it?
Well, I've always had a ton of respect for you and Brandon and Jordan and Mike. And it wasn't less than a year ago that Jordan and Brandon finally came back, right? So
well, and the cool thing is all of you are crushing it. You don't have any scrubs on that team. Like,
right.
You guys are all maximizing and seizing the opportunity now, which I'm so stoked.
Most crushing it, New York North, Jordan, Brandon.
One of
Houston.
my favorite days was when you told us that we could officially text Brandon and Jordan, and now they're down in Texas.
Can't text them too soon and get a little spooked out. Get a little spooked out.
Well, before you change subject, I wanted to just kind of put a bow on the dealer talk. We've had like it come up here and there. And the thing that I always tell guys, so like the one thing that people say was like, well, I can get paid like this much more per deal at this dealer or whatever. And I've had to explain it to our guys a few times where I'm like, okay, listen, math is math. So if you take the same account, same contract, same terms, same interest rate, same price per kilowatt, same sun hours, same system size, that's just a math equation. So that account has the exact value whether it's at Sunrun or anywhere else, right? Like you take all those numbers, put it in a spreadsheet, you hit calculate, and it's going to give you a sum total. How those dollars are then spent varies widely from company to company. So we choose to invest in our sales force with stuff like the league, stuff like our combine trip, our next program, our leadership development program, our management that we have on each team. I mean, we just have the one app that we've spent, Ty would know more than me, but a lot of money on, tech development, all that stuff, sales tools. So you have all these things. So we always say what happens is you might even make a couple $100 more a kilowatt here or there at a random dealer. But for every one account you sell there, you're going to sell 10 with us. And for every one account that sticks there, you're going to have at least 7 stick with us, right? So it's like over the course. And then more importantly, you mentioned accountability. And I think Ty and I were on the same page. Like you don't have this actual league that you are a part of with a scoreboard and all these incentives that we run, and from the bigs to the rally to all these different things. And so I think reps underestimate how important that is a part of their success, like this culture and this environment that they're in. They just assume that they can go do it anywhere. And you're like, you don't understand how critical the culture and environment that you're in plays a factor in the success that you have, right?
Yeah.
So when you're a part of this big, huge machine that's just this rushing river, it's easy to jump in and go at that same speed. But it's really hard to jump in a river that's not moving and then row as fast as everybody else in that. I mean,
you nailed it. And plus, like, when you go on that side, most business owners are taking the extra. They're not reinvesting it. I mean, we were reinvesting.
They're living on it.
They're taking the extra, and that's their distribution as a business owner.
Right. They're not reinvesting in the business because they still got to afford the same lifestyle they had when they were making $500,000
So
a year
they're
with us.
they're like, they're paying their reps an allowance essentially, and they're taking the lion's share. And if you're lucky, you have a dealer that they're reinvesting a little bit, but you still can't compete with, the new higher pay and everything else. Like, and then you nailed it about accountability. Like so people think like, oh, I'm franchised here, I'll just go there and I'll do 25 there. No, you're not. You're not going to do anything close.
Like zero chance.
I promise you. You probably won't even break 5 in a quarter because you just don't have that level of like that drive that comes around the association that we have here. You don't get that same drive. You think you're self-motivated until you walk away from a team of people that are keeping you like, fired up all the time, excited, and you want to constantly compete for the extras and becoming franchise and whatnot. You don't have it on that platform. It's very, very difficult to
And then the
recreate.
last cherry on top is the stock that you can earn with our company.
Right.
That's not an option anywhere else.
Right. So a business owner would have to then say, hey, let's make them like a small percentage partner. And the problem with that is that the top performer, if you make them a small percentage partner, they always want to cash out at the end of the quarter. They don't want to reinvest it. And we're saying, hey, reinvest it with us. We're business owners. We're going to reinvest it. They're
They
like,
want their dividend
I just
now.
want my bonus. Yeah, just pay me and I'm out. And we're like, so we're very like,
Well, these are mercenary. They have a mercenary mentality.
yeah. So you really have to like keep close to your chest any equity that you have. You can't give it away because it just starts to dilute it. And making special deals, you can't do that type of deal. Like, you'll just get crushed.
I think the problem that often I see, because there's a place for dealers. Like, in fact, the majority of the market is people that do that. There's a place for them. I think when they get sideways is trying to be the same, because they're not the same. They're different businesses. Like, we make money differently. Like, our business is different, right? We keep our customers. We acquire cash generating assets. That's what we do. Other companies make a commission off of the resale of the paper, right? So they're different businesses. They shouldn't try to be the same. And so that's always the thing where like, oh, we're better in summer. And I'm like, you're just different. It's like saying a Ducati motorcycle is better than a Porsche car. They're different, right?
Yeah. And I would say to that too, is like, a lot of times when people move, we kept the culture of knocking doors, but a lot of times when you move over to the dealer world, they're coming off doors, and that's an absolute killer. They're trying to now recreate this market. You're not a marketer. Like, what do you know about getting online and doing this? And now they're spending money. And so even working for a dealer, they end up starting to spend, $10, $15, $20,000 a month because they're trying to like buy leads and stuff. And it's just a really bad place to be. They almost always end up walking away in debt and unhappy, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes they get knocked out of the industry because of it.
Dude, I remember I don't know if you guys ever experienced this like in the early days. Remember we used to get those handful of leads every month, right? So when people would call in before we had like all these different channels, we pretty much only had like street sales, and we get these leads. And at first, remember all the new reps were like, he was only selling so much because of those leads. And I remember immediately I was one of the first to I was like, take me off the lead list. But it wasn't because I was trying to be some sort of like altruistic leader. I hated them because I would drive, first of all,
fool's gold.
I'd drive across town.
Yeah, they really are.
Right? So it's like I got to come out of my neighborhood and drive 15 miles in North LA traffic to go see this thing.
Right.
There's 5 other people that are seeing them.
Yep.
Yeah,
So I have to lower my
They're
price.
price shoppers.
Yeah, and they
they're
beat me
hard
up.
Tire
And it's
kickers.
like, dude, the best thing
Yeah.
to do is just stay put. I know if I stay put in my area, I'll get 3. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So I remember I
right.
came off the list. And everyone was like, dude, that's amazing. I'm like, trust me. Trust me. It was like the smart decision.
It's the same realization that dealers have when they're like, all right, I got in over my head, and the expenses and this and that, I don't know what I was fighting for. I want to come back. Is the same thing. Like, if I ever see somebody waver and they start to try and do some sort of campaign, they always are like, man, I wasted a lot of money and I'm back on the doors. Like, that's where I'm getting the best connections. That's where I'm getting all my installs are coming from, and I'm just praying that I could break even on whatever this nonsense I got into. Because there's a lot of marketers out there, they're trying to hook you on things that...
Well, and they're also a lot of times just not compliant too. So, I mean, any of our sales reps listening, if you're hearing about anyone buying leads or this, that, whatever, chances are they're not compliant. And if they get caught, then there's possible termination.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff involved with it. So it's really risky business for the company. And more importantly, it's just not as effective as just getting out of your car and going knocking doors for a couple hours.
Oh, yeah.
So that is the one thing about your crew is you guys have stayed very street. So your transition back, I mean, you've all moved up really quickly. You know what I mean? Like, you've all earned your spot. Yeah, it's been awesome to see.
Yeah, it's cool to... as you're doing this, it just gets easier and easier. You know what I mean? Like, you become your repetition. I learned that from Mo. Mo is he's mastered door knocking through repetition. You know what I mean? Like, that's his superpower. Is he just like, and that's something he used to do in college. Like, he graduated with like a 3.9 GPA. He used to just take all of his notes from class and rewrite it and commit it to memory. He does the same thing with the pitch. He's just this like, has consistent repetition, and it's the same thing. Like, you get on the doors and you master it by repetition, and it just becomes easier and easier to do over the years.
How do you view opportunities? I know you've taken a lot of them. You've relocated. You've gotten outside of your comfort zone for them. It's caused a lot of growth. It's caused a lot of development. Like, how do you view it?
A really big part of it is the leader in the market who I'm working with. I'm not betting. I'll work harder for somebody else before I work, like really hard for myself. I've always been that way. So like, whoever the director was at the time, I'm like going to work for them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm out there like, hey, what do you need this week? What do you need this month? And when they give me a number, I'm like, all right, I'm on it. Like, you're calling the plays, I'm just running them. You know, you're the coach, I'm the player. And I like to keep myself, even in a leadership position, I always like to keep myself the player. You know what I mean? I got to run the play, and I'm gonna execute it as best as I possibly can because it's in my control. And I would say, you know, you get a strong leader in a market, and you feel really good about the leader, and you feel good about getting rooted. That's the biggest thing is kind of like the culture code, like safety. You know, safety, transparency. Like you feel safe with that leader that they're going to take you, you know, to go the distance. Like with your career, you could set goals with them. They're going to have your back, and that's made the difference. It's made me. So this last move, my wife was 7 months pregnant, and it was really like on a verbal kind of deal, like a handshake with Daryl. You know, I was like, and you guys were on the league trip, so. After Daryl had like courted me for 3 months to try and get me to walk away from Revo, I called him and was like, hey, if we're good, I got to put my house, the timing with putting my house on the market, I got to do it right now. I'm like, if we're good, I know you're on a league trip. If you get a little bit of Wi-Fi, just let me know.
Gallivanting in Tahiti.
Yeah.
While he's selling his house.
I
was like, let me know. I think it was New Zealand, maybe. I'm not sure. I was like, let me know. And he sent me a text back on Wi-Fi. He said, yeah, we're good. House was listed the next day.
That's what I'm
saying.
saying.
Sold 18 days later. I was back in New York. Like, you know, we had our baby like, you know, a month after that. Like it was crazy, but
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was really quick moves.
But a lot of people would view that and think, oh, dude, I own a house, I'm about to have a baby, I can't do it. Yeah, that's how a lot of people view it.
I looked at it like so first off, I was coming back to co-direct with Zach Allred and Cam Camel. These guys I talked a lot about Jordan, Brandon, and Mo. Zach and Cam are equally, you know, my boys. We've gone through we've been in the trenches together for years now. You know, knocking doors and building teams, building brands. And so I had an opportunity to work under Daryl's direction, co-directing with my other two buddies. You know, I got sets of groups of friends here. My other two guys that I would say, hey, let's go back to back. I'm like, I got to take this opportunity. When he called me and said it's contingent on you moving back to New York, I looked at my wife. I said, we're gonna have to. I know she was like 7 months pregnant, giving my 1-year-old a bath. I'm like, you might want to sit down.
You got a sec? She's like, no.
You might want to sit down for a second. I was like, we might have to take this opportunity. I'm like, I can't pass on this. These are the people I want to build with. If I'm not going to be at Revo building with my best friends, I'm going to build with my, you know, another set of best friends that are, you know, I've got a lot of, you know, respect for and loyalty with. And I'm like, I know how they work. I want to build with them. So I wasn't going to pass on that. I wasn't going to pass on this, you know, an opportunity to come back and, you know, put it all to play. Everything from the Vivint days, the Revo days, put it all now on the line for Sunrun.
One of the things that Daryl credits you with is he says you're one of the best with a growth mindset. We actually recently did last week for the weekly updates from the senior leaders. We actually gave that as a prompt, like who of your leaders has rank them on growth mindset.
Yeah.
And actually that was a great exercise, huh? Like it was really cool to see kind of what came back. And
cool.
I've heard you like heralded before for having a growth mindset, but maybe talk about that. Like what is a growth mindset to you and how have you developed it and how has it served you?
Yeah. So for me, growth mindset is it's open. Everything is boiled down to connection, right? Is what I've learned over the last 10 years doing this. It's all boiled down to connection. And to have a growth mindset, I've got to be able to connect with the leaders and the up and coming leaders in a market that want to give input. They're wanting to give input. They don't have a voice. So if we sit down at a round table with, you know, 5 of us or 10 of us and we start talking about ideas, at the end of the day, at the end of that session, we're going to mastermind an idea that's going to be amazing. And everyone's going to buy in on it because it was all of our idea. So I think like the big thing in the beginning of my career was like, I wanted to have the idea and get the credit. And towards the latter half of my career, I'm wanting to give the credit away. I don't want to hold credit. I want to be able to give the credit to the people that I'm working with and my mom actually taught me that. My mom had built a widowers group on Long Island. It's like 900 people that she built this thing up to. And she's the first facilitator that had like put together these groups because when I lost my dad when I was a kid, she recognized that there was no outlet for this. There was no support. She was like, I think she was 42 at the time.
Wow.
We lost my dad pretty young. He was 44. So she created this.
What did you lose him to?
It was just some like birth, like a birth defect thing that kind
Caught
of
up to him.
later on in life. And, but when she created that, I watched her as a facilitator, and I watched when she started to expand the groups where she needed more help. She started to create and develop more facilitators because more people needed help. She couldn't do it all. And as I was going through sort of my maturity in the business, in the industry, I'm watching my mom. I'm studying my mom. I'm like watching how she's growing a team of 900 people. And my brother too. My brother's got a massive business, and he does the same thing with his teams. And I'm like watching my family members around me that are like, and I'm just seeing the facilitator bit. So I guess I would say growth mindset for me is taking on the facilitator role instead of taking on the more of a dictatorship of like, hey, this is the way it's going to be because I came up with this great idea and I've been doing this 10 years and just trust me on it. I've got a lot of great ideas, but it only gets better when I open my ideas up to other people and they add to it. I don't want my narrow vision, one-dimensional idea. I want this thing to be multi-dimensional. I want all walks of life. Jake Chamberlain comes to the table with great ideas, and Mike. These guys, all my district managers that are out in New York. Mike Long, Mike Pittner. These guys have the least amount of time in. They're contributing like crazy. Carvin DeRoche, Rick Lacanina. I'm learning from these guys, and all the up and coming leaders. I'm constantly learning from their walks of life. It doesn't have to be necessarily industry guys. They've been part of other teams, so they know what they like, what they don't like. And when you get all of that open thought in a safe space of like, hey, I'm not going to judge you guys. If we could just talk openly about this topic, then we start to actually come up with solutions that people want to buy in on, and we can start to move the needle on whatever the problem was. So growth mind for us to be able to go anywhere, it's going to take more than just me. It's going to be a lot of helping hands. We're going to need everybody in on this thing. So, I want as many people's input and buy-in as I can get,
Shout out to Mama Monaco. She made the thread the other day.
Yes.
She did, yeah.
Yes, they just got installed yesterday, her and my stepdad, Scott.
What a woman though, huh? Like
Yeah.
from what, we just heard of her, I didn't even know about the support group, but breast cancer survivor.
Yeah.
Sounds like raised an amazing family. Helping other people, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, she's an amazing role model. Great mom.
How old were you when your dad died?
The best. I was 14
That's
when my dad passed. So
age.
yeah, I would say probably one of the biggest things that shaped my entire life is I always sort of was looking for my dad for guidance. And what I recognized later on is that first off, I didn't have it. I was looking. It was classic. Who moved my cheese? Mm-hmm. I kept going to cheese station A. There was no cheese. I was just hemming it on, right? And so it took me a long time before I could move on to cheese station C or whatever it was in the book, right? And I recognized later on that I've had many mentors. As I was looking for his guidance, and I wasn't going to get it, I had to look at all the other mentors. I had Nick Hansen and Jeremy Long, and my buddies, the crew. And Daryl and Zach and Cam and all my buddies, there's an Adam, obviously too, we spent a lot of time together. I've had so many mentors over the years that, and great role models, like my brother Mike and my mom, and even my dad, the short time that I had with him, great role model, that I was able to make peace with that. But I think that's another thing that really holds people back, and it held me back for a long time, was I needed to make peace with my past for me to be able to really move forward career-wise. Was that if things aren't balanced outside of working, it's so difficult to get to work. So I get everything for me is what's my least amount of resistance to get to work. I want strong leaders that I could work with. I want up and coming leaders that I could be connected with, that are open to the bad, the hard conversations and the good conversations. I want, surround myself with positive association, great role models, and I need to be at peace with my past so that I could just get to work. And it's taken a lot of time to develop that. So
I know we're almost out of time here, but you were in a fraternity in college, right? You were the frat prez, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Founding father.
You have to wear like a special hat on the Friday night party. You have to wear the water buffalo.
So the college I went to, we didn't really have like a fraternity culture, and I know probably same with you at BYU.
Yeah, no, a little different there, yeah.
A little different at BYU. So I want to hear like maybe we'll end with just like your favorite like frat shenanigan, like kind of. I want to hear like a heistish type story, like
man.
You're probably past statute of limitations by now, right?
Give us a good frat story. Maybe just something that you're proud of with the frat. I mean, I know you were instrumental in starting it and getting it going and all that stuff.
I mean, it was.
And by the way, I'm not saying this lightly, but I actually think I've heard you talk about this experience before, and you didn't know it at the time, but it's like it really helped shape, your career, and it's like you organizing this thing and putting it together and running it, and like dealing with all the egos and like organizing all the ideas.
Yep.
I mean, it sounds like I'm describing the job of a Sun-run director right now, right? So, so anyway, let's. I
mean, I guess little did I know that was like preparation for what would come to be like building teams, and I mean, it's honestly, I could say I couldn't tell you one bit of coursework that I took in my undergrad in 4.5 years time. I couldn't tell you any coursework that I like apply today. What I could tell you is that my wantingness to get through college, my wantingness to like be a part of something, to leave a legacy, all of that developing of the fraternity was it. Like that was what shaped me during my college years. So it had nothing to do with the frat parties. Those were fun. I mean, Mo and Jordan are fraternity brothers too. I don't know if you know that, but
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we go way back as founders. And Brandon, honorary, he wants to get in.
I want to get on that honorary train, dude. What's that look like?
No, we love Brandon. But yeah, no, I wouldn't say honestly. It was just about making memories and and all the connections. I'm still really close with a lot of those guys. Where we were in each other's weddings, and I'm the godfather of. One of my little brother in the fraternity. I'm the godfather of his son. He's the godfather of my first son. It's just some really awesome connections. And I would just say that, it taught me some, but it was the grit to get through it. When my dad passed, I lost my financial aid, my first year. And so I was about to lose school, and I heard through the grapevine, I could become an EMT and, get tuition remission. So I took a 6-month course. Became an EMT, went back, interviewed. I was volunteering for a semester because they didn't need anybody. Then I wrote a letter to the provost of the school to say, hey, I've been volunteering for 3 months, and I've noticed that if we added a few more shifts, that we can get like 24-hour, 24/7 EMS on the school. I also volunteer with my fraternity for Admitted Students Day. I give tours to the parents that are thinking about bringing their kids here. And it would be great if we could tell the parents that we have 24/7 EMS for their kids. But we would need to fill some more slots, and they opened up a few more slots, and I got the 7th slot so I could go to school and finish out my undergrad. So it was all of that experience. It was fighting for all of that. It was the fraternity, building the fraternity from scratch. That just that shaped me to be resourceful and creative. That was the ticket. Ever since then, every opportunity I had, I was like, how can I be resourceful? And how can I be creative to solve problems to give myself the least resistance to be successful at this?
Monaco's scrappy, man.
Yeah, dude. You've been doing it your whole life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, since my dad, it's been 24 years since my dad passed.
Dude, 14. I can't imagine my 14-year-old's calling me right now. Like,
it's wild.
Yeah, dude. I have so much respect for you that you're able to.
It's wild.
Yeah, and even to be able to say like, hey, make peace with my past. Like, I mean, I can't imagine what that must have been like for a kid with limited perspective, and for your mom and for your brother. Like, man, that's.
It's funny. I chased my legacy was to try and do good things so that my mom didn't have to worry about me, but also to like make my father proud, like for my family name. So everything I did was like to do good deeds for my family name. My brother too, we have a pact about it. And then as I got older and I became a dad, now it's like, it's another layer. It's like I was doing good deeds this whole time for my dad. Now I'm doing it for my sons.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing it for like, what do I leave behind for them? Like, what example do they get? When I, decide to retire and move on. Like, I want to make sure that they know that the family name, is associated with all of this. You know,
How old are you?
I'll be 39 on Sunday.
You almost answered in the 20s.
Birthday,
it's been a while, bro.
birthday, Easter Sunday.
Your birthday's on Sunday.
Wait.
My birthday's
Yeah.
on Monday.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
should-
April 1st?
Yeah, we should co-birthday.
Oh, nice.
My mom's the 31st.
Oh,
Of
man.
March?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Little mom connection there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know too many people with my
Yeah,
birthday.
you know, it's I don't want to digress too much, but yeah, my dad passed away when he was 46, and I'll tell you, it's a very surreal feeling when you are like, I'm 45, so I'm going to turn 46 this year. So
Wow.
it's a very surreal feeling to pass your dad in age.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's
Man.
it's a crazy thing.
Well,
Yeah.
well, when the kicker for me at the end was like, you know that scene in The Lion King where Simba like looks in the water and sees his reflection, and he sees the reflection of his dad.
yeah.
Like that's me now because I'm older and I got a beard, and like now I'm starting to actually see images of my dad in the mirror, and so I don't miss him like I used to miss him. I miss him like I wish he was here. I wish I could share these stories with him, but I see him
Yeah.
in the mirror. You know, I see him every day, and that's the legacy that I've always been fighting for, is that I could be the man that I know that he wanted me to be, and I'm gonna pass that. I'm gonna pass that on with my name, my family name, to my kids.
Pretty
That's
cool, man.
beautiful,
Yeah.
man. Well, let's end on that note, dude. That's awesome, and I'm stoked and I'm proud, and I like you more than I did when we started. And I liked you when we started this, dude. You came all the way from New Jersey to sit in that seat, or from New York to sit in that seat. So, anyway, brother, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing. This story is going to help a lot of people, and stoked for what you build in the future.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
If you're listening to this and interested in joining our teams, DM us on Instagram at Run the League.
What are you waiting for? Run the league, shoot us a DM, and let's get going.